This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 332.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Brandon Turner, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, David Green. David Green, welcome to the BiggerPockets Podcast, buddy. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I just got back from hanging out with you in Hawaii. I got a nice tan going on. I'm refreshed.
Well, good. You have a great what's the word? Farmer's tan. You had a nice looking. I took that picture. Remember? I won't show anybody. It's pretty great though.
Yeah, it looks like I'm wearing a white tank top with it when I have no shirt on. It's bad.
No, I think you smoothed that out the last day. It was good. No, we had a blast. We had a lot of fun. Went to a luau together. Actually, Kevin, who's our producer here, Kevin's actually on the call with us right now, but he always hides his face. But Kevin's here. Kevin was out. So was Jake. He's our new head of pro at BiggerPockets. He was out there. And then, of course, Ryan Murdoch. And the five of us went to a luau together, which was actually a ton of fun. So, yeah, it was great. So thank you for coming out.
That's why we love real estate, because you can work from anywhere in the country, and Hawaii is not a bad place to work from.
It is not a bad place to work from. So, yeah, we had some good time masterminding on the future of the BiggerPockets Podcast. Got some new technology, got some new microphones.
Oh, and we made a video. When are we dropping
we made
that?
it. I don't know, soon. I don't know if maybe it's out, maybe it's not. If not, anyway, lots of good video content. We're pumping out a lot of stuff, so check that out, of course, over on the BiggerPockets YouTube page and subscribe there. But that is actually not our quick tip today. So now it's time for our quick tip. All right, so today's quick tip is if you are a landlord, if you are somebody that owns even one rental property, BiggerPockets actually has a page on the site dedicated to help you with some different resources. So just go to the tools, like on the navigation bar on BiggerPockets, go to tools, drop down to landlord resources, and you'll find links to different resources that can help you, different companies. We have some partnerships with different people, tenant screening, property management software, stuff like that. So again, check it out. There's also an ultimate tenant screening guide that I wrote a few years back. We put that on there as well. So again, if you're a landlord, check that out. We just want to make life a little bit easier for you landlords. All right. And finally, lastly, before we get to today's show, David, I just want to let you know something. I had a great time with you out here in Hawaii. So thank you for joining me. I wanted you to know I appreciate you, dude.
Thank you, Brandon. The feeling is mutual, and we would like to bring more people into this awesome circle that we've been able to build of using real estate to fuel a perfect life.
Perfect life. I don't know if I call it that, but we're working there. All right, dude. Well, thank you. And I guess that's all I got. So make sure you guys rate and review the show, the BiggerPockets Podcast. Make sure you're listening to the Money Show, the Business Show, and hanging out on our social media channels. So without further ado, I want to bring in today's guests. So today's guests are Adam Johnson and Brent Moreno, two dudes that are just really crushing it down in Mississippi with their real estate. They've done almost, 60-some deals last year, on track for 100 deals this year. Their systems are just phenomenal. You guys are going to be blown away by the way that they use things like text messages to get deals kind of automatically. They talk about why you might not want to look like a big deal when you're going to meet with sellers. They got some really cool tips. If you're a landlord, some really cool tips on making sure your tenants pay on time, do some of their own maintenance, and change their furnace filters, which is cool. And then listen closely for when they talk about the 3-foot rule. The 3-foot rule could completely change your real estate investing forever. I'm not even kidding. It's really, really cool. So definitely check that out. Stay till the end because you guys are going to love it. This show just builds more and more and more, just meat and value. I think you'll love it. So take some notes. And with that, it's time to get to today's show. All right, fellas, welcome to the BiggerPockets Podcast. Man, so good to have you guys here today.
Man, we're excited to be here.
Pretty pumped.
Good. We haven't done a twofer show in a little while, so we decided to bring on two completely strangers to each other. And you guys are partners, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to go through how you were able to find each other, how you able to work together, what you're doing. I hear there's some pretty fun stuff in there. And we'll start, though, prior to that. what did each of you guys do? And go ahead and like when you the first couple times you talk, if you think about it, say who you are so people kind of get an idea of what your voices are compared to who your name is, and then let us know like kind of what your story is before real estate. Go ahead.
So this is Adam. Some people call me Big Sip. So
is that real?
That's a true story.
Okay, Big Sip. I like it.
Which the funny thing is it's Mississippi, so Big Sip. It just makes sense. And
oh, I thought you took like a really big drink of like sweet tea or something.
No, well, you're
and it stuck.
You're close to what my mother thought, which was the first time she heard it. She goes, "Have you been drinking alcohol again? Like drinking alcohol?" So apparently, there's a lot of confusion there, but it is just because I'm from Mississippi and I used to be a much bigger fella.
Oh, all right.
So I've been doing real estate 16 and a half years now. I think the first one was October 11th of 2002. And I would have been 19 and some change. Done a lot of other stuff in the meantime, some tax offices, insurance offices, and other things. But real estate's just always been right there at the forefront. And it's something that I've always enjoyed the most.
Because you're not a female, and I don't feel bad asking you this. How old are you right now? Because you look like, I would say you're like 29, and if you've been doing it for 16 years, you were like a teenager. How old are you?
I'll take it. I'll be turning 36 next month.
Okay, all right. So you got into the game early on.
Yes, I was very fortunate the way I grew up. My dad's been doing this for 45 years.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so you were kind of born into it. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I'm Brent, everybody. I was not born into it. I grew up on a small little family farm in Leakesville, Mississippi. I always tell everyone it's the only place you don't go through to get to somewhere else.
Nice.
So I grew up there, always kind of had, aspirations to do kind of big things, to always do my own thing. Went to college to play baseball, messed my back up, said, screw this, I want to do music. Not play music or anything. I just wanted to work for a record label, moved to Chicago, started working for a Guitar Center, doing like pro audio stuff, and then just, started touring. And then I found out that these companies were hiring people like me who had touring experience to do experiential marketing. And what that is basically major brands. If you've ever been to a music festival or a sporting event, the booths that are set up outside for like free giveaway stuff, brand recognition type stuff. I did that for 11 and a half years. Spent a lot of time on the road, traveled all over the country, 49 states, 6 countries, doing marketing stuff. And so I did that for a while, got tired of being on the road, was planning on getting married, found Max. Max and I actually met each other while we were out doing marketing gigs. We became good friends because we had the same mindset. That's Max Maxwell, by the way. Saw he had posted a Instagram photo of a house he bought for $17,000. Always had a curiosity about real estate. And I was like, I always thought you had to have money, a lot of money. And I called him up. I said, hey, next time you find a house like that, $17,000, let me know. I'll be in, I'll buy it. We can go in there together, partner on it. He's like, it'd be easier to show you what I'm doing. So I go over to his office next time I'm home in Winston-Salem. We sit down. He'd just gotten started. He's like, I've been doing this for 2 months and I've been making, $20,000 every month. And I was kind of like, the kid in Wolf of Wall Street. Like, you show me a check for $20,000, I'm quitting my job right now. And he was like, no, I'll tell you, it's wholesaling. I'd never heard of it. So I call Adam. I knew Adam for probably about 4 or 5 years in. And I called Adam and I was like, hey, have you ever heard of wholesaling? He goes, yeah, I do it all the time. I was like, well, why you never told me about this? You knew I had a business mindset. Like, I wanted to open a business. I wanted to do my own thing. I've always wanted to. Always wanted to kind of be involved in real estate. So that's what kind of got me into it. And then when I moved back from South Carolina to Mississippi, it just made sense.
All right. So let me break here real quick because I want to make sure that those listening, we haven't actually talked about wholesaling very often lately on the podcast. We used to talk about it a lot more than we do lately. Can one of you describe what exactly do you mean by wholesaling? And then people are listening, they're like, wait, $20,000 a month? Like, how is that possible? Can somebody walk me through, what do you mean when we say wholesaling?
So go for it.
So basically what it is, so we do a little bit of everything. We do wholesaling, we do flips, we do buy and holds. And what we try to do is focus on the acquisition side, but the ones that we get creatively will typically keep for rentals. The ones that we cherry pick out we'll keep for our flip deals. And then the wholesale ones are basically where we know we've got a deal on it. We just don't want to fool with it. So we pass that along to another investor for a much smaller fee.
So essentially, wholesaling is this finding an opportunity, property, getting it at a discount, putting that property under contract, and then you're not selling the property, you're selling that piece of paper for an assignment fee. So you're assigning that your interest in that property to an investor who pays you, anywhere. I think our average is around $8,000 here in Mississippi.
Okay. And you never own the property. You never, or do you guys, I mean, I guess getting into the weeds a little bit, but do you double close? Do you assign? How do you typically because there's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah. Most of the time, 90% of the time it's assignment.
Okay.
If it's a high amount of money, if it's a large amount of money and we've never worked with that buyer before, we'll probably double close it.
Okay. And so typically,
let me jump in real quick. Remember, Brandon, when we were in Hawaii, we were talking about how we think we own our phones, but we don't really own our phone. We own the right to use our phones.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is very similar to that. When you're getting a deal from a wholesaler, you're buying the right to buy the property at terms that they've already established for you. Like, it's kind of like hiring a professional negotiator that goes in there and gets you a really good deal on a house, and then they get it cut because they negotiated, which isn't different than how we do a lot of other things in life. When you're a professional athlete, you have an agent who negotiates your salary for the team with you, or a musician, you have someone who negotiates your contract. Real estate investing is the same way. And I know a lot of people get hung up. They think wholesaling is dishonest or immoral or something like that, but it's not. It's the same thing that we do with a lot of other things in life. There's some states that have rules that say you can't do it, or you can only do it certain ways, so they have to operate within those structures. But it's really not different than anything else that we do in life.
Right. That's exactly right.
All right. So let's go back to your story. So you guys, first of all, how did you guys originally meet? Like 4 or 5 years earlier?
So I had at one point in time, I moved back to Mississippi, was living in a house with an old friend of mine who we played baseball together with in high school. And he was actually dating my best friend's sister at the time. And so he would come over every now and then when I was home, we'd get together, and he told me he owned all these businesses, H&R Blocks and tax offices and stuff like that. And I was like, well, he's a fairly successful guy, knows a little bit about business. So we hung out, had a lot of good fun times together, became really close friends. That relationship obviously ended, but ours did not. We kept in touch. As soon as I found out about real estate and wholesaling, I called him, and he suggested that I read a book, which was Flipping Properties version 2. I forget who it was written by. It's not like the greatest, most detailed book in the world, but it was like $4 on Amazon. But that was his test to gauge how interested I was. So I read it in like 2 days, and I came back and I had a bunch of questions. And he's like, okay, this guy's serious. And then I took it another step farther once I started, because I had a really good job. I was making close to 6 figures with my job that I was working. So I was taking all the money I was making in wholesaling, putting it back into systems and marketing.
All right.
Yeah, that's how we met. And we met that way. And then whenever I moved back to Mississippi, we quickly realized it would just make more sense to be partners versus working against each other.
Okay. So I think we can probably move to partnerships then at this point, because this is something that I'm a big fan of. I love partnerships in real estate. Now, I'm not saying they always work out great, but especially when you're getting started, like, you don't have everything you need. You might not have the money, you might not have the knowledge, you might not have the experience, you might not have whatever, right? But you probably have something, like 2 or 3 of those things that you could bring to the table, and then a partner can bring the other things and you can work together. Did you guys find that you have complementary skills? Or one of you good at something else, or were you both good at the same things?
We were
very much so.
We were laser cut pieces of a puzzle.
Okay.
Very, very different in our skill sets and what we bring. I mean, I guess with any partnership, you've got to have the same core driving principles and values, which we both want to get to the same spot. So I think that's very, very important. Probably the biggest underlying factor of any partnership. But we're drastically different in what we bring to the table, what we enjoy. Brent's actually a little more introverted. Very phenomenal when it comes to anything tech related and how to do things on a big scale. I'm the guy that, put me in somebody's living room. If there's a deal to be had, I'll get it. But I still use AOL email address.
He's not. Look, he didn't have internet at his house till like August of 2017.
Wow.
And was still knocking down like 40 deals, year.
But wow, that's impressive. I mean, and it's cool to see that the partnership working this way, and that like one of you, is a little more introverted. One of you, I think you said, Brent, you were a little more tech focused. You're kind of that side of things. Adam, you do a lot more of the, hey, I'm going to, get the deal. I'm going to work these systems. I'm guessing, are you both systems people, or one of you feel stronger in that?
I would say I'm more of a systems person, mainly because of most of the systems that we have now are all, online and you have your podios and stuff like that. So I've been working on him for several months. And when I came in, for me, the way I had things structured in South Carolina before I moved, I had an acquisitions manager, I had a cold caller, all that stuff. I enjoy the fact that if I'm not there, business is still running. Whereas with him, he still very much enjoys going out to an appointments and taking phone calls and stuff. I was like, look, I'm going to make it, the phones ring so much to where you can't handle it anymore. So it took about 3 or 4 months of me just tweaking a few things, doing some Facebook ads, sending out a few more mailers and stuff like that before he finally realized that I can't take the phone anymore. So we hired a lead manager. So we're slowly kind of scaling to the point, because my goal is, I tell everybody, like, why are you so systems-based? It's like, well, to be completely honest, I hate working. I love real estate. I love what it can do for you, but I love what systems can do for you as well. And if I'm gone and he's gone, I want the business to still be running.
I wouldn't say that you hate working. I think you hate to be obligated to work.
Yeah.
I think that's because, I think we both love working. I can't tell you, a lot of times we're at 40 hours by Wednesday at lunchtime. But it's nice knowing that you don't have to all the time.
I know somebody just like that. He lives in Hawaii. He's brilliant, but he cannot be tied down.
I don't know who you're talking about. Whatever.
Yeah.
That is the thing. Not being required to work. That's the thing.
Yeah, that makes it completely different.
Yeah.
Systems to me they take your normal skills, the things you can do, and they amplify them incredibly, right? It's like Tony Stark's armor. That's what makes him Iron Man. Those are your systems. You have it in your brain. You know what to do. You have the plans, but you can't actually execute it. The system is what superpowers you, so that every idea you have or plan you have can be put in place and can be working for you. And your normal potential is like 10x.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's kind of the goal, and what we've seen in the last 2 weeks or so with our new lead manager is that she's coming in and she's actually doing a lot of my, it's not Podio, it's Investor PO. She's actually doing a lot of my notes and setting all my appointments for me. And even on the back end, like I'll come in, I'll be like, hey, mark this as this, and we're making an offer of this on this property. And she's been taking care of it all, but that's exactly right. So that I can just go from living room to living room to living room.
I love that. And that's really like the core of what you're doing here, is getting other people now involved who can do all those tasks, so you can do what your superpower is, which is get me in the living room. Like, that's what you're really good at. So you're like, let's build out the system that makes sure that I'm consistently getting in the living room. Right now I'm building out this this multifamily business, so to speak, mobile home parks and some other stuff. Anyway, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is like, what I'm really good at is like running the numbers on a deal and making an offer and negotiating. Like, I love that part of things, right? But like, I'm not real big on the lead side of things. I'm not real big on the like research, the research of the area and trying to figure out exactly, what makes it a great area. I'm going to get somebody else to do that. I just want a continual flow of awesome deals in my lap that I can go and figure out exactly how much I can pay for it, and then, go move on to the next one. So it's the same thing. And I know, David, you do the exact same thing. David Green here is like, as an agent and as an investor. I mean, David's like, I just want a good deal in my lap, and I'm going to go out and, go get it. Or I want a client, like an appointment set. I'm going to be in their living room, convincing them that I'm the agent to work with.
I think
let's just work on what we're good at.
This is like 100 times more important than we're probably actually conveying. It's literally the difference between being successful or not. If you look at why we are not successful at stuff, it's usually because it requires us to do too many things that we just don't like doing or we're not comfortable doing. Too much risk, too much discomfort, too much whatever. When you're a living room guy and what you know is, you put me in front of that person, I will close the deal. You're a cheetah and you see that gazelle and you want to chase that gazelle down, right? If somebody requires you to do too much stuff that's not cheetah-like, hey, hook up the plow to you and make you drag it, or climb that tree and survey the area, find the gazelles or something. You're just not going to do it. And that's why Brandon was saying he loves that people partner with real estate, because we don't realize how much we get in our own way and hold ourselves back. Yeah. And when you get a partner who's like, oh God, I don't want to have to sit in front of someone. That sounds terrifying. What do I say? What if they don't like me? What if I sweat? Where do I put my hands? Right? At that point, you want the guy who's kind of running interference for you and looking up the numbers, doing the research, getting you the information that you need to be successful during your job. And that's what good partnerships are. They're not just two people that split up the work. They're two people that are doing different parts of the job because they enjoy doing that and they get to focus on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's been a huge thing for us, is because we're so different on the front end on what our skill sets are, that we also don't really, I mean, we talk about what we're doing. So as Brent's doing his thing, that's Brent's thing. Like, I might have feedback every now and then or a couple questions, but at the end of the day, that's his department. And vice versa, when we're working a deal, he'll have some say-so, he'll have his questions, but at the end of the day, that's my side. And it works really well. It takes a load off. Plus we know that we'll get our stuff done respectively, which is always nice.
That's great. All right, so let's dive into the nitty gritty on the business. I want to know how you're finding deals, and let's start with how you're finding them. Then I want to move to how you're organized your business. I mean, what CRMs are you using? How do you get those come in there? And then we'll go to how you're funding your deals, and then how you're managing your deals. Sound good? Four-step process here. All right. Number one, how are you finding deals? Let's go through all the different ways that you guys currently attract deals to your business.
So
who's in charge of that?
The first thing I've got to tell you is that good deals are created, not found, right?
Ooh, look at that. This guy's been listening.
No, so we have a multitude of things that we work on. We pull several lists, in which Brent will get into the technical side of this, but so we pull everything from divorce to probate, to pre-foreclosures, HOA liens, tax delinquents,
water list,
our driver.
What do you mean? Water list. What do you mean?
The shutoffs.
So they're basically you can basically go to the water department, as long as it's a public owned entity, and request to have. So what I normally do is I word it to where give me every property that's had water shut off in the last 6 months, that's had no service in the last 6 months, and that's a clear definition of what is vacant for sure. And I want to hit people.
I love it. I think that's fascinating, because again, you're trying to look for people who have some sort of distress there. So you pull these lists, and then what do you do with them? So how are you pulling the list?
So all that's coming from the courthouse. The only time we don't is we're using REI Pro or PropStream or ListSource to pull like absentee on 65 and older, absentee out of state, all that stuff. But everything else is coming directly from the courthouse. We have a courthouse runner that goes down there because we're in Mississippi. We're about 10 years behind everyone. Our stuff is not available online. So we have to actually physically go to the courthouse to get all that information. So the way our funnel works now is we pull those lists, we throw it into a skip tracer. We're using Sherpa, which is leadsherpa.com. And then that skip traces everything, removes all potential litigators, and everyone from the DNC list. Then it's a text blast, but it's not a text blast in the sense of I hit the button, so it's actually legal because I'm hitting the button every single time. It just merges their information into every message, and that's our first step. We hit everybody with that, and then the callbacks come back into our lead manager. She's actually handling all the text messages. Our AMs in other markets are handling their text messages, but all the calls are coming back to our lead manager, who then screens them, books the appointments. If we don't if we don't hear from them, go for it.
Well, no, go ahead, finish your thought, then I'm going to jump back because this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, so if we don't hear back from them, they go into our cold callers list. Our cold caller then hits everyone that we didn't hear from the text messages. From there, we take all the people who said do not call or whatever the case may, or not interested in all, we'll take them off. And if we still haven't heard from you, then it goes into a mailer, and then we'll mail you.
So
our funnel.
This is fascinating because we haven't really talked about the text message thing here on the show, but I know that's very it's a new technology, and I've almost been reluctant to talk about it because I feel like this is really cool, and I don't want everybody in the world to know about this, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
I'm so mad because I knew we were going to have to bring it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, but it's a growing trend. So you're saying you get these lists of people that have some indication that there is a problem going on.
Right.
Then how do you get, I mean, like this program, like Lead Sherpa, I think is what you said, that'll actually get their phone number? Like, how does that work? Like, how's that a thing?
They have
what
a
does?
skip tracing database or a skip tracing feature inside Sherpa.
Okay.
And I think the first, I'm not real familiar with it. I've never logged in, but I think the first one we did, what was our response?
We were at 56% response rate.
Wow.
Yeah, insane, right?
Yeah, typical direct mail is like 2%, 3%. I don't know. Some people get 10, but
I thought I was doing good at 18 to 22% with direct mail, and then he brought along the text messages and just blew that out of the water.
What's this text say? I mean, how I want to buy your house?
No, it says so it says hi, apologies, hi so and so, whoever the name is. Hi Charles, apologies for the message out of the blue. I'm contacting you today regarding the property located at such and such address, which it merges all that. I don't know if you have any interest in selling the property whatsoever, but if you do, you can give me a call or text back. Thanks. That's it. It's really simple.
Wow. And why do you think that works so well?
People are glued to their phones, and it's a lot of people who text back and says, how'd you get my number? What's great about Sherpa is that it has, if you go over to the left-hand side, it basically has a little dashboard where you can just automatic reply, and it has features. So like it says, how'd you get my number? And it already has automatic response. So just click on that and it sends it, which basically says, we use a software that matches public records that we pull from the courthouse to match numbers to people.
Do people get upset about that?
Sometimes. I mean, it's very rarely that they get too upset. They just want to know. Like it's kind of strange for them to get a random text message out of the blue, which is why we lead with, hey, this is out of the blue. I apologize. We're very apologetic up front, and people tend to kind of take that tone a little bit better than just saying, hey, just noticed your property at this. Are you interested in selling? Call me back.
Hey, it looks like you're getting a divorce.
Yeah. Hey, it looks like
that would go.
And we hit everybody with the same message, no matter what motivation they're in. So if it's a foreclosure or probate or whatever it is, it's the same message every single time, even in our letters.
Wow. We haven't tested it, but I feel like we've had less abrasive responses than we typically do. It seems like the ones that are curious or kind of on edge about it are a little more balanced out.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of those that give you a call and they are just.
Yeah. All right. So you've got this machine that you're sending out these you're sending out these text messages to people that are having some sort of, potential distress situation. And then you get a call back from someone. Let's make sure I'm getting all this right. Some of them you get a text or call back right away, and you start dealing with those and interacting with those. The ones that are like, hey, take me off your list, you take them off your list. The ones that just don't reply at all, the other half, let's say, that are not responding, or 40-some%, you are putting them into a direct mail camp. Cold call and then direct mail, or
cold call?
Yeah, it's cold call then direct
cold call. And then if they don't answer, or if they do. All right. And then what are you sending for direct mail? Is this postcard, letter, and what's kind of your gist in those?
It's a letter.
It basically just has a few bullet points. And what it says is, hey, I may be interested in purchasing your property at such and such address. I'm not a realtor looking to list your home. I'm a local investor wanting to purchase it. And then, it does a few bullet points, no fees, no commissions, no hassle. We buy as is. If you're interested, give us a call.
Cool. And how many of these are you typically doing? I mean, total like deals that come in a given year or month, or like what's kind of your rate here?
I don't know right now. This is all fairly new. So I mean, like the text blast has been within the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
That up. So we've been doing some cold calling. You would know what the response rates to those would be.
So we're averaging so we're on a triple dialer, which is Bojo Sales, which means it's just dialing 3 numbers at one time. Whenever somebody picks up, it just drops the other 2 and leaves a voicemail. So our cold caller was doing that, and for about every 500 to 600 dials, she would get anywhere from 10 to 20 contacts, and out of those 10 to 20 contacts, we'd get 1 to 2 leads every day. So she would call. She calls anywhere from about 600 to 700 dials a day.
Wow. Okay, and you're focusing just on Mississippi, or are you going all over there?
Yeah, just Mississippi.
Yeah. No, we're spread out over the state. We have stuff from the north end to the south end and several places in between. I think last count we have like 14 or 15 counties that we're working.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's fascinating. So it'll be interesting to hear like where you guys end up in the next 6 months to a year. But let's say prior to that, if you just started that, what were you doing for deals before? And then give us an idea of your overall business right now. I mean, how many deals have you done over the past, how long have you been working together, and what's your portfolio look like today?
I think we did 63 last year, and that was Brent moving down in end of May, 1st of June, which you still, I mean, it took 2 months to get settled probably. I think we did 63 last year. Last I checked, we're on track to do well over 100 this year.
Wow.
The majority of that up until Brent came along was either direct mail or selective cold calling. And what I mean by selective is it was never on a massive scale. It was just, pre-foreclosures, some of what I really thought were hot driving for dollars leads. A few of those I would go ahead and do a one-off skip trace and call. But the vast majority was direct mail. Okay.
And were you then selling? I mean, like, were you wholesaling most of these? Or what's your kind of rate, wholesale versus flip versus rental?
Probably 60% wholesale.
Yeah.
Say 60, give or take a few percent wholesale. Probably 5 to 10% buy and hold, maybe. Probably closer to 5%. And then threw some flips in there.
Okay. All right. Super cool.
There's really not a standard operating procedure when it comes to when we actually get the deals, because there's so many people that we work with that try to do so many different things and have so many different likes and risk exceptions, I guess would be the word for it, that it's really case by case.
That makes sense. And what makes it a case by case one way versus the other? I mean, people listening right now, I'm sure they love the idea of, hey, I'm going to start getting leads coming in, and then I'm going to figure out what to do with them based on what they are. I mean, that's a cool idea, right? Like, it's like when you milk cows. I was watching this documentary. What was it, like Fed Up on Netflix the other day, or one of the shows? Anyway, and it was like talking about like dairy production, how they took all the fat out of the milk, and they told everyone that skim milk was better for you, which is, you could argue one way or another, but all of that was fat left over. And they're like, well, we just toss it. But no, why don't we just make cheese with it? And then that's why you go to the cheese aisle now at the grocery store, and it's like 500 rows of cheese, because like the government just subsidizes like cheese manufacturing now because we have so much of it, because we're trying to get people healthier but not eating fat. Anyway, so you got these deals coming in, this milk coming in, and you're like, all right, let's separate out the fat and the milk, and we're gonna make some cream cheese out of this. And I think that's fascinating. By the way, David, did you like that analogy? That's pretty good, wasn't it?
I was actually feeling so much. I was feeling so much pride that Brandon has stepped up his analogy game.
All right, so you got all this stuff coming in. You're figuring out what to do with it. What do you look for to say that one's going to be a rental? Earlier, you said something about creative. Can you talk about that?
Well, how long do we have?
9 hours. We'll cap this at 9.
Our approach is drastically different. I'll try to put this in a concise answer, and then if you want to expound on something, let us know. So our approach is very much different in the fact that a lot of people worry about what their exit strategy is, and a lot of people worry about how much they're going to make. We don't really do either. What we do is we go in, number one, figure out what the homeowner's trying to accomplish, and try to or shape a deal or an offer around what their motivation is, because that's the most likely thing to get accepted. So we put a lot of focus in on that, and we don't worry about the money. I mean, we could tell you deal after deal we've done this year that we didn't make anything on. We just got it done because it needed to be done. And so what we do is we come in and try to shape our offer around what the homeowner really wants and what they have the ability to provide. So that's kind of what we look for, is the can and the will, I call it. What can they do and what will they do? And then find the blend of those. And then what we do is we take whatever proposal we've come up with and then see which one of our buyers that will fit, and then see if there's any room for us to make money. So actually us making money is the last part of the equation every time.
Yeah, but you're a wholesaler, and wholesalers are only about the money, and they're all about greed and ripping people off, right?
You know, I've seen that a lot, but usually those don't have any notches on their belt to say that they're wholesalers. They're trying to wholesale.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So let's talk about that for a minute before we move on. Why is there such a negative view towards wholesalers? Like, what causes that, and how do you avoid that in your business? How do you keep a good reputation?
I think wholesalers get a bad rep because of the fact that most of them have the inability to take serious action, mostly on their education side, and also the ability to be consistent and know what they know. The problem is that I see a lot of is that it's not necessarily that they're greedy. They just want to get their first deal done, or they want to get a deal done so badly that they will inflate numbers and throw out a really high ARV and then shoot for the moon to try to get the most amount of money as possible, which that's where a little bit of that greed comes in. We've seen it several times. Matter of fact, last week we had a deal blow up with a guy we were trying to help, blow up in his face. He had a $20,000 offer. He was trying to get $25,000. And next thing you know, that comes back and it blows up in his face because his buyer backs out because the mortgage was higher than they originally thought. There was just a lot of things that were missed. When he could have just took the $80,000 offer and gotten his money right then and there. But I feel like education is the big one. They only see the big checks. They don't see all the sweat and the hard work and the education that goes in behind it. They see a $50,000 check and they go, "Oh, I can do that." Well, in Mississippi, I can buy like 2 or 3 houses for $50,000.
Yeah,
like, straight up. You're not going to get those kinds of checks. So one thing we see here locally is that we see a lot of people trying to get these $20,000, $30,000 deals. They happen occasionally. They're just not every day.
I've only done a handful of $20,000 wholesales ever.
Yeah.
When you say $20,000, are you talking about your assignment fee, or are you talking about the purchase price?
Yeah, the assignment fee.
So what do you guys find works better, to do a few deals with the high assignment fee, or to do large volume with the lower one?
Volume.
The volume is better. Okay. Can you go into a little bit of why you think that is for someone who's thinking, "Hey, I want to be a wholesaler," and how they should build their business to look?
Well, I'm a firm believer in spreading out risk, right? So that's why, like, even on our flip deals, we'll typically have 2 or 3 people putting the money in because they want to spread their risk out and they're used to working with each other. Same for us. Well, there's a couple of reasons. I think number one is keeping the mindset that you need a consistent flow. And because we're not knocking out, $50,000 or $100,000 assignment fees, sometimes we make 0, sometimes we make $5,000, sometimes we make $10,000. But what that does is it really forces us to go in and make sure that we've got deal after deal after deal after deal, because we don't know what they're going to make. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me on why I like that. I think those are just more consistent. They're more probable. I had one deal. It would have been a $40,000 assignment fee that was supposed to be good to go. And this is kind of my second reason behind that. But I got back from Phoenix, came in, should have been closing the week after I got back, and the whole thing fell apart. And that hurts a little bit. Like, that can make for a pretty bad day when you really wanting this deal to close. You get emotionally wrapped up in it, and then it falls apart. Yep. It's not just costing you that deal, but what else are you going to miss over the next 2 weeks while you're beating yourself up? And so if it's an $8,000 deal, it's not quite as big of a deal.
So for somebody who wants to start like this funnel that you guys have built, what do you think is the first step they need to take? Do they need a buyer list? Do they need to build the system? Do they need to get out there and start putting stuff in contract and then from there scale up?
So him and I have there's a train of thought that if there's a deal there, the buyers will come, right? which is very true. I like to focus, on the other hand, as I tell everybody, is like I like to go and try to meet buyers. So I'll go to foreclosure auctions, I go to Rehab meetings, stuff like that. So this, I'm telling you from a perspective of how I got started. I wanted to immediately find buyers because I didn't want to waste time, money, and energy in areas where I didn't know I had people buying it. So I would get really detailed with the buyers that I would meet at foreclosure auctions, ask them the questions like, what's your perfect investment look like? Are you flipping? Are you buying and holding? Where are you doing that at? What's your general, what's your price range look like? What kind of returns are you looking for? That way I know I can spend my money and time and energy in a certain area, and I know what price range I need to be at, and I just need to be under that. So it's a much easier process when I already know what the number the guy's going to give me. I don't have to worry about what the ARV is or anything else. I just need to know where he needs to be at on a return, and then go spend my time, money, and energy in that area and get him that deal.
Okay. And that comes from just knowing your market, right? Knowing what buyers want, knowing what they want to pay, kind of like what the people that are coming to you are looking for, correct?
Correct.
So if we looked at your business and we said, what is the one most important piece that makes this whole thing profitable? What would you say that is?
Ooh, how deep do you want to go?
It's one thing.
Deep.
So, I'll tell you what I think it is that when we walk into somebody's living room, we used to go in with the mindset of, I'm going to buy this house. And the day that changed, it was 2016. And I forget what happened. I woke up one morning and just had one of those epiphanies. And I said, you know what? I don't care if I buy the house or not. Like, legit, do not care if I buy the house. I'm going to go in and I'm going to give them everything I have to offer and help them, whatever the case is. If it's me, great. If it's not me, even better, because I got a lot to do today. So I went in and just, as legitimately as I can say it, I started helping people regardless of what the outcome was for me. And it's crazy because we bought more houses and made more money. And we helped a lot of people in the process.
That's
so
really
it was
cool.
The mindset shift from I need to make money to I need to help this person.
Yep.
Yes, man, that's such a good point because I find this all the time. As a real estate agent, we run into the same problem, right? I want to help people, but I also have to make money. And you kind of got to balance this walk between bringing value to somebody, but you can't just bring value because then you could be taken advantage of. Everybody's going to want you to sell their house for free. Everybody's going to want you to go find them a buyer that's going to pay retail price, but your buyers are looking to you for the deal while the seller is looking for how much money can you get me? So you have to be wise enough to know, how do I convert this value that I've added to somebody into something that makes money so that I can run a business, so that I can be in a position to keep adding value. And I think we all start off going one way or the other too much. We're too much focused on our profit in the business, or we're too much focused on adding value. And then you get burned a couple of times and you start to realize how to find that middle ground. What have you guys found is your kind of like secret sauce with the combination of how you add value versus how you run your business? Was there a point where once you realized something that kind of kicked into place and you could really scale?
Well, I'll pick up on something. It's one of the things you said about they're worried about how much money they can get. One of the best quotes I've ever heard, actually, I heard it from his dad. I'm not sure if he got it from somewhere else, but the relief of stress is often greater than price. So a lot of times these people, like we don't even talk price. We don't talk numbers a lot of the times until we get to the nitty gritty, basically, until we get to the very end. I want to know who you are, where you're from, what your family does, who's your favorite sports team, whatever the case may be. I want to try to build that rapport and relationship to where you start telling me everything you need in life. Where are you trying to go and how can I help you get there? And then it comes to, okay, well, if I can't get a number out of them first, which is going to happen 99% of the time, they're going to give me a number because we walk in, we say, we're helpers, we're not hagglers. If you give me a ballpark of where you need to be that you think is fair, that you think I can, honestly make a little bit of money on this, obviously I can't do everything for free, where do you think we should be at? And if I can make that number work, great. If I can't, I'll give it my best shot and I'll explain why I can't and go from there. And then I'll give you some pointers on, if you want to remodel your house, like what colors are working. Now, here's a good contractor to reach out to. Like all this stuff, I want to provide as much service as possible to where at the end of the day, they don't really have a choice but to go with me.
So would you say that it's good advice for a newbie to understand, as much as it feels cool to walk in there with a briefcase and a suit and sit down and want to be this wheeler dealer type of a person who's a professional and he can get stuff done and it looks like Gordon Gekko in the movies, you're way better off to come with an approachable, we're both people, you're in a spot, I'm in a spot, let's see if we can get those two spots to combine.
Yeah. I can tell you that the best approach I've ever had. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is a huge area of misconception. People will spend hours getting their logo where they like it, and your logo is not going to buy any houses.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest thing, because until, July of last year, I upgraded my car finally, because my Volvo I was driving, I was taking the seller to the bank on a Saturday, which happened to be my birthday. It was an hour and a half one way. And I was taken to go get him some money because we were supposed to close on Tuesday or Wednesday, and he didn't have money to pay his movers. So I said, look, it's my birthday. Let me come pick you up. We'll go to the bank. We'll make sure you've got some money, come back. And that goes into really, truly trying to help somebody. So anyway, my car ended up, the radiator blew up, and I got stranded with the seller in Slidell for a few hours. But I drove a 99 Volvo that I bought for $2,500. Before that, for about 4 or 5 years, I drove an '02 Cadillac that by the end of every day, like my last appointment of the day, could always tell when I was pulling up because my power steering fluid had leaked out. So you get that wind and noise. And so, I mean, like there wasn't anything tied to a fancy car. I never went in with any kind of paperwork ever. And half the time on the appointments, I'm in tennis shoes and gym shorts. And I do that specifically to tear that wall down, because when you walk in really slick people take advantage of people, right? That's the mindset. And especially when they're already in a bad spot. I don't want to be associated with an attorney's office, a bank. I want to seem as far from that as I possibly can. I want to be that guy that looks like they got lost in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe 100% in that. I drive a Toyota Camry, even though I'm selling Bay Area real estate, because I don't want the person whose house I'm going to sell to see me pull up in a Lamborghini and think, oh, so I'm paying for that Lamborghini. That's what you're telling me right now, right? Right off the bat, you've created a hill for yourself that you have to overcome to build that rapport. You made it really, really difficult for yourself to do. You want to make it as easy for yourself as you can, as you guys have seen, which means tailoring yourself to your audience. If these are blue-collar people who live blue-collar lifestyles, they're going to resent if you show up really flashy, right? And the opposite can be true in some cases too. I've seen some people who are trying so hard to prove that they're not flashy that they show up in flip-flops and sandals. And the person's like, well, why should I listen to you at all if you're representing me in something more? Or if you'd worn a suit, they would feel like you're taking them serious. It really just comes down to the audience that you have. It wouldn't make sense to show up in a suit to the person who's losing their house and they feel like they're getting screwed and you're the one who's going to benefit from it. In that case, it might make more sense to take a much more humble approach. But I love what you guys are saying is that you'll do whatever you got to do to make the business work better. That's what this is coming down to. If I got to drive a car that leaks oil, that's what I'm going to do. If I got to show up in a clean but humble clothing, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what newbies need to understand. Like your guys' audience, the people that are buying from you in Mississippi are expecting a certain type of product. Like you said, you could buy 3 houses for $50,000. So your business model needs to be made to reflect that. That's the stuff you're going for. You're not going to be trying to put different things under contract and make $50,000 on a wholesale deal there, as opposed to maybe the guy in Beverly Hills who's doing the same thing.
Right.
So can you guys walk me through how, when a lead comes in, because I'm fascinated by your guys' systems, right? So a lead comes in, they say, yeah, I might, I don't know, I might be interested in selling or whatever. Let's say it comes in from direct mail, comes in from the text message, doesn't matter. What happens to? Can you walk me through the process of what CRM do you use? Who does what? How do you get to the closing table?
So on the CRM, we use IPO. It's called Investor PO. It's the reason I chose that is one, the guy that built it was in a mastermind of mine, and he built it with the back end all on Podio. I've built and worked inside of Podio. Most everyone I know also has the same kind of mindset toward Podio, to where I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like using it. I don't like
same here.
Somebody trying to teach it to somebody is like, might as well be trying to teach them French or something.
Especially somebody like me.
Yeah. So what I really liked about it is the fact that it's got its own dashboard, its own systems, it's got its own SMS, follow-up text messages, voice broadcasting, all that stuff that it just does automatically. So it follows up for everybody automatically. So what happens is when a lead comes in, whether it's through our website or through a phone call from any of our marketing pieces that we send out, it goes immediately to our lead manager. She answers the phone or responds to an email, whatever the case may be, tries to get them on the phone, and then starts going through the process of figuring out, what their motivation is, how much they're looking to get, to try to get a ballpark, and seeing if they're negotiable on that number. And if they have some, like, I can go a little bit lower, or I'd consider, a lower offer, then okay, great, perfect. Then that goes to him, and then he kind of does like an extra level of qualifying before he goes on the appointment. And then once he goes on the appointment, it's then based on where they're at, what they want to do, and how I can help them get there.
All right. So then let's shift and talk about, so the deal comes in, you're moving through it, you want to buy it, you like it, everything looks good. How are you funding it? Let's say, especially if you want to go rental property here. Let's say you want to keep this as a rental, because the wholesale deals, that's easy to talk about how you fund them. But let's talk. Let's actually talk about all three, because I think this is important. Because for me, it's easy, but maybe somebody learning is like, I have no idea. How do you fund, quote unquote, fund a wholesale deal? And then what's that look like for a flip for you? And what does that look like for funding for a rental property?
So I guess the best way is just give you some examples of a few deals that we've just done. So for just a rental, we try to use creative terms for our buy and holds. So like, for instance, the last one that we bought for a buy and hold, which was really funny, because this was a lesson in me for follow-up and why it's good to have a system other than yellow note paper. So we had made an offer on a property, probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now. And the guy owned the property free and clear. It was a rental property, which at the time was going well. A year or so later, the lead comes back to Brent through somebody he knew. Turns out it was the same guy. Brent put it all together that I'd been there a year and a half before with my dad, actually. And this guy since then had a really bad experience with a tenant and had decided that maybe rental properties, when it's going bad, is not for him. So what we did is we went in, talked to him. We realized that, and again, it's finding that what their motivation is. So he liked the monthly income, but turns out he wasn't fit to be a landlord. So we bought it pretty much full retail, but we did it with 0 down, 3% for 360 months. So now we just keep it. There's no bank financing. There's no inspections. There's no appraisals. None of that stuff matters, because we've got it. It's a $155,000 house. We paid $140 for it, but it's a cash flow machine.
That's cool. Okay, so you get some creative strategies in there. So what about like the flipping? If you're going to flip a house, how do you fund that? So we've got,
again, we get creative with those too. So it just depends. If the house is free and clear, we're going to push really, really hard to have them do a short-term, no interest, no payments, maybe for 6 to 8, 10, 12 months, where we don't pay them until we sell the house. So then we're just bringing in the money for, buy and hold costs. I should have said closing costs and hold
costs.
Sure. And then whatever the repairs are. And then we partner up. We have probably 8 or 10 guys that we partner with, depending on the deal, the area, how big the project is. And we'll bring their money in, but it depends on how we're getting it. So if they go in for cash, typically anywhere from a 60-40 split, one side or the other, if they pay cash for the house and the repairs and everything. If it's creative, so like we did one where I think they were 2 payments behind. We caught them up, took the note over subject to, and we did a 60-40 split our way. But it was I think we were in 71, and I think the guy walked away with an extra 22, which he was thrilled about.
That's cool. It's cool. I've never actually done one of those where you partner like with the seller. You were saying I've never done something like that before. But again, the idea of like bringing in other people. If you don't have the money, Maybe it means you bring in a partner and you fund it. Like they fund the deal and you do the work, or you find the deal. Like again, a lot of this comes back to just like doing what you're really good at, what you have in front of you, and getting other people to do what they're good at. And a seller comes to you and they have got the ability to hold the house for a year, great. If they don't, you figure out another way. It's the milk and cheese analogy from earlier, right? Like you're going to figure it out one way or another.
Well, I think,
and oftentimes, you're able to give the seller a little bit more money that way, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at cash on cash returns. So if we're only having to put 70 versus 175 and get the same kind of returns, like, well, I can give you a little bit more money, right? Yeah. So it's a really great opportunity for them. It's a great opportunity for us to get a really high cash on cash return with not a lot of risk involved, especially for us when we go to private money guys. They assume all the risk of the project. We're just funding the deal and we take a percentage of it.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's also where a lot of newbies go wrong is, you're talking about they want to get dressed up, drive the fancy car and show up in the briefcase and, straight Gordon Gekko style.
Yeah.
And the truth of it is that there's people out there that can do 100% of everything involved in a deal by themselves, but there's not very many of them, and they don't do many deals from my experience. But I think a lot of new people feel like that takes away from their pride or just it kind of
takes money out of their pocket.
Oh, yeah, it takes money out of their pocket.
Yep.
Which wasn't going in their pocket anyway most of the time. But I think people forget that investing is very much a team sport.
Yep, very much so. And, I've said it before. I've said it 100 times before. Like 100%, 50% of a great deal is better than 100% of no deal. So especially when you're first getting in the game, like the first few deals don't even matter at all. Like who cares if you make any money? Like get the knowledge, get the experience, start building your reputation, start moving that way. Anyway, fantastic. And then third, if you're going to wholesale deal, you typically don't need the money, right? Because you just show up at, the title company. Like you're not using anybody's money, right? You're getting a property into contract, you're selling the contract, and the person who buys it ends the one that ends up funding their own deal. You're not funding it. Is that basically how you guys do that?
Yeah. Correct. That's where assignments and double closes actually.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, really, really good. Okay, last question is before we move on to the deep dive, well, maybe I got two more. How do you manage your portfolio right now? Do you have in-house property management, out-house property management? I love that phrase. Or how do you deal with that?
Actually, we have what's called a Leon.
Leon, all right.
That's actually my dad. He's a 20% partner in what we're doing.
Okay.
Kind of a consulting, like I said, he's been doing it 45 years. So he handles everything on the back end. And then he's been doing property management for probably 45 years. And he's just got it down. Like it's just him. I think he's looking at hiring a bookkeeper soon. But we do a lot of little things like, for instance, on paying rent, we give them pre-made deposit slips with the microtoner on them, and they're numbered just like a check number. So they get 12 at the beginning of every year. They go deposit it at the bank. The bank gives them a receipt, and then when we log in, we say, okay, number 104, that's such and such address. And then there's another little tip, which is we give a discounted rent. So let's say that market rent is $1,200. Well, then our rent is going to be $1,100 discounted. And what we do is the rent is $1,200, but if they do three things every month, they pay on time, like the day that it's due, not in the grace period. If they do any minor maintenance, basically treat that $100 like a deductible. So if the toilet leaks, don't call me, fix it. And then change the air filter every month. Then they get that $100 discount.
That's cool.
Which seems to work out really well. People, I don't know what it is. They don't mind paying late fees, but you take a discount away from them and they are livid.
So how do you manage that process? I mean, like, how do you know they're going to change their air filter? Like, do you just assume that they are? I mean, you just tell them that they are, and they probably are.
By the time we do all of our background checks and do, a couple phone interviews and then meet them, and then a lot of times what I like to do, if it's possible, is a pop-up inspection. So let's just say that somebody gets approved through the whole process. You've stalked them on Facebook. You've done all the background checks, and they get approved. I mean, show up at their house. Because if their house is clean and neat and they take pride in it, that's the person you want. If you show up and it's just a disaster and it's missing doors and kids have drawn all over the walls And really, you don't even have to most of the time. If you tell them that you're on the way, their reaction is going to tell you whether or not.
I like that. All right, so I have to ask you guys something. Our producer told me I need to ask. Apparently, you have a super secret method for finding deals using Uber drivers in your service. Can you tell us a little bit about this cutting edge technique that you guys have developed?
So that stemmed from me, right? So when I first got started in the business, I was traveling all the time. At one point in time, I did over 300 days in a hotel in 1 year. So I was traveling all the time, so I can't go driving for dollars. I didn't want to spend too much money on marketing techniques. I already knew that mail was going to cost a lot if I wanted to do mail campaigns. So I was always stuck on cold calling, but I knew driving for dollars would be probably how I'd get my first deal. But I wasn't there. And so before I got into real estate, I was in South Carolina with my now wife. She was in law school there. So when I was home, I might be home for a week, might be home for 2 weeks. I would drop her off at school, turn my Uber on, and just, hey, if I make a few extra bucks and pay the truck note, that's great. Whatever. I'm just going to kind of do it for fun, a little bit of side money. It's better than staring at the walls. So I created a Uber Facebook group for Columbia, South Carolina. And lo and behold, people started finding it, joining it. And it was just really just kind of a network, talk about events that were coming up. I didn't really put much attention or time into it. Didn't think much of it until I got into real estate, and I went, there's over 300 people in this group. All they do is drive around. Like, they could be sending me leads. They're driving around neighborhoods. They could be sending me pictures of properties and the addresses, and I can research them on the back end and start calling these lists that they're sending me and schedule appointments for when I'm going to be home. So that's what I did. I just went into these Uber groups and started going, hey, would you like to make an extra $500 doing what you already do? Message me for more details. And then I would get probably like 10 or 15 people that would be all over it. And out of that 10 or 15, you'd really only get like 1 or 2 people that would really take it seriously.
Yeah.
They were like, they want to get paid up front. And I would have to explain it to them like, I get paid by once I close on the deal. So they have to put a little bit of trust in you, right? Once I got that first girl, though, it started becoming to the point where I was having like monthly meetings with my Uber drivers. And buying them pizza and teaching them a little bit about real estate and how they can go out and get their own deals and everything else. So they were sending me those deals. And when I came here, every time I hop into an Uber, it doesn't matter if I'm here or in a market I don't even work in. I'm just like, hey, do you ever see any vacant houses while you're driving around? Like, just houses, yards all grown up, roofs, got tarp on it or anything like that. Start talking about it. So we actually, one of our best bird dogs we have on my bachelor trip, we're leaving a bar, going to the casino, and it's down here in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is the market that we work in. He picks us up, and I immediately start talking about real estate, and everybody in the car is like, oh God, Brent's talking about real estate again. I can't help myself. Turns out the guy had a few people that he knew that wanted to sell. Next thing you know, I started telling him how he could help us and how we could help him. And within like 2 weeks, he'd already sent us over 100 properties.
Wow.
I was like, man, this guy's crushing it, right? So and it's not just Uber, right? We talk about it all the time. It's like your inner circle. I call it the 3-foot rule. Anyone that's going to be around me for more than a minute within 3 foot of me, I'm going to tell them what I do and how they can help me.
That's great.
That way, we never miss anything, because there's always somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, so on and so forth. So that like circle of influence is huge, especially when you start telling everyone, you become friends with everyone and start telling everyone how they can help you and how you can help them.
And it sounds crazy, right, to do it that extreme, but I've found that that's what has always created the craziest, best stories.
Yeah.
Well, stopping at a yard sale, for crying out loud. We just did a deal last month that we got on terms, $1,200 market rent value on 2 properties that the lady forgot that she had because they were her husband's rentals. They've been empty for 2 years. She didn't want anything to do with them. And we bought it for $40,000 on terms with nothing down.
Wow.
$300 a month?
Yeah, we rounded up to $300 a month so she could easier.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys,
it's like, see, the yard's for sale, but the house.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, no, I'm going to hold on to the house for a little bit longer. And then her friend slapped her and was like, "What about those rental properties?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, I forgot all about those."
You mean my rental properties?
Wow. All right. You call it? Did you say the 3-foot rule?
Yeah, 3-foot rule.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's
You
really
can
good.
touch them, talk to them.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, and like you say, yeah, that might sound crazy or extreme, but what sounds crazy or extreme to me is working the same job until you're 65 or 70, retiring on Social Security. That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah.
So pick your crazy.
And I like a crazy story. I mean, heck, half the deals we do, I'm just excited for the story to tell.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where we can hardly go to lunch anymore without somebody coming up to us while we're at lunch, like, "Oh, hey, I got this house for you.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it. It's over here." Like, so it's we're what, 150,000 people here in Hattiesburg, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not huge. It's not very big. So it feels small. Everybody knows everyone. There's not a ton of like popping lunch spots or anything. So when we go out, like usually there's always somebody coming up to us and they have a house or they have a situation or they know somebody that's in a situation.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. All right. Well, speaking of stories, I want to go into another story. And so the next segment of a show is called The Deal Deep Dive. All right, this is the part of the show where we dive deep into one of your particular deals. I hope you guys have something in mind, and we're going to dive deep onto a number of different questions about that thing. So I'm going to just kick this off with what kind of property, but first of all, you have one in mind, correct?
Yes.
It
All
was
right.
before
What kind
you
of property?
start asking, there's 2 properties that make this deal that were acquired totally different.
All right. That sounds complicated, but those are the best stories. So let's go. What kind of property or properties are we talking about here? Like, what is this?
So one was a single family residence and the other was a mobile home on 3 acres.
Okay.
So what makes this interesting is it was a tax delinquent, mail out. The house was worth about $145,000. That's the ARV. They were asking $100,000. It was owned free and clear. Our maximum cash offer was probably going to be around $60,000. So what we did is we bought it for $100,000 on terms. You remember it was $10,000 down. Yeah, $10,000 down and $500 a month at 180 months.
Which for those that can work a calculator is 0% interest.
Yes,
that's good.
Okay, so how did you guys find this deal?
It was a tax delinquent and inherited property. It was owned free and clear. So we sent a mailer out.
Okay, so send a mailer out. They called you back, put it into your system, started working with them, and this now we're talking about the single family home here, right?
Yes.
All right. So you said your max offer was $60K. Say that again real quick. What you actually? Well, let me just go through the question. So you said that's how you found it. So they originally asked, they were asking 100, and you said $60K. Is that right?
Yep. Max cash offer.
That's cash offer.
Max cash offer. Okay. So then in the negotiation, what did you actually end up with? Tell us that again.
So we ended up with $100,000 purchase price with $10,000 down.
Okay.
And $500 a month for 180 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where the 0% interest came from. Okay.
And now how did you negotiate those terms?
We gave her what she asked for.
She asked for $100,000.
It was a drill. It was probably a 2-month process because she called us, and then like a lot of people do, we were the first ones in the door. So then once we said, hey, we're probably in that 60 range, she put it on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and there was probably 8 or 10 other investors that went by and said that they were in that 50 to 60 range. So it totally validated what I said and what Brent said, but we kept diving in. Like, I wish there was a way we could figure it out, which we had it in the back of our minds, but we just kept, let's try to figure it out. Do you have any ideas? How can we make, how can we pay 100 and make this work? And then the last day, when we got it locked up, because we knew that her 2 biggest things, right? She needed approximately $8,000 to move to Colorado, and she wanted $400 to $500 a month to supplement her retirement. And so I think we called up and said, hey, Miss Wanda, I think we've got it figured out. And she goes, oh, you got an idea? And I said, I think we got it where you can get that $100,000. We'll get you everything that you're wanting. and we can put this deal together and make it work right now. And she was all geared up about it. We had been working for a long time. She was already sold on the idea of moving, right? Because there's a lot of psychology from that after that first appointment.
Yep.
And so she had been ready to move for about 4 weeks at that point. And so it was one of those things that it checked her boxes, and she pulled the trigger on it.
All right. So you funded it with seller financing, essentially, correct?
Yeah.
And then what did you actually do with it at that point? Did you just hold on to it, rented it out?
Yeah. Did the rehab on it. I think it's rented out for $1,125, $1,100, give or take a couple bucks.
Okay. And then I'm curious, where does the mobile home come into play here? Because
I'll let him explain that one.
Okay. So the question was, what is the outcome? Like, what happened next? But yeah, go ahead.
So this is probably one of my favorite deals. And there was so many moving pieces in this thing that it's absolutely ridiculous. But basically what we did, and I love this story because everybody talks about, well, we do deals this way. And then we have people that hear about how we do deals. They say, oh man, you guys really think outside the box. And the point of this whole example is that there's not a freaking box. Like, you can do whatever you can imagine in your mind, you can do it. Yep. And so while this deal was going on, there was, it was a double wide that had been foreclosed on 2 acres. There was an encroachment issue. So as soon as, and of course, a realtor sent it to me, he said, hey, this one's got some issues. Maybe you can do something with it, right? I mean, I don't know how we've turned into that, but apparently we're problem solvers. So they send us the deal. There's an encroachment issue. The original goal was to get the 2 acres in the mobile home and figure that out. Well, what we ended up doing was, so you've got a 2-acre parcel and a 3-acre parcel owned by the same person. There's a double wide that's halfway on both of those. When the bank foreclosed on it, they took the double wide and the 2 acres. The 3 acres was free and clear, but it has half a mobile home on it.
Oh, okay.
So the bank is they filed a lis pendens. They're working on trying to actively serve this guy to try to get the 3 acres back. Well, we swooped in and bought the 3 acres for $3,500.
Okay.
So now the bank's got to deal with me. So that took about a year trying to negotiate with the bank. We ended up redrawing some property lines. We ended up with 3 acres. They ended up with 2, but the double wide encroachment issue is taken care of. So we put a mobile home on that property that's paying us $200 a month lot rent. And there's another mobile home that we just put on there that doesn't have an occupant in it. We traded the 3 acres and the mobile home for the balance of the note on that $100,000 house. So when all the dust settled, we were in that house after fix up, rented out for $62,000. That was our cash out of pocket over the course of 18 to 20 something months. So it's a lot of moving parts, but we got a smoking terms deal on a house.
Yep.
Smoking cash price on some land. And within a year after both of those were bought, a year to 18 months, we ended up trading one for the balance of the other one. And we ended up in the house for $62,000. And I can show you, I need some whiteboards, but I can.
I know, I was going to say.
Great deal for that seller.
That's cool. And what's neat about this is, and this is what I try to convey to people all the time, is like, there is no book that you can read that's going to teach somebody how to do that. There is no podcast that you can listen to that's going to teach somebody how to do that.
Well, there is.
Right? Well, there is now, right? That one specific case, right? But real estate's not about like, show me a blueprint and I'll follow that exactly. Because real estate is it doesn't work that way. It's too many variables. But what you guys have demonstrated is that you understand like the fundamentals. You understand how negotiation works, how different options are there. And you have the mindset of asking, how do I get this done? Not just saying, well, it doesn't fit with exactly what this book says, so I'm not going to do it, right? And that's like a lesson I think people can take. I mean, there's a lot of good lessons from today's show, but that's one thing I really hope people walk out of today with this is like, just figure it out. Get it done, because like there's so many ways to pull off these different deals. There's so many ways to turn milk into cheese, that like they should be able to do this. I mean, anybody can do this if you're just like thinking, how do I do this? So yeah, kudos to you guys. You guys did awesome.
Can I give one warning there to people?
Please.
So I think it's very important. People hear about this creative stuff and it's a very shiny object.
Yep.
I think it's a valuable thing to have in your tool belt, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think people need to know that while we do get just insanely creative, that's just one of many, many deals we've done that you almost have to draw out on a whiteboard. Our go-to every time we go in somebody's house is a cash deal. Like we only do the creative out of necessity. That's it.
All right. I think that's smart. So that was cool. Yeah, very cool. And I'm sure people are like, I'm going to go back and listen. I'm going to go back and listen to that again later. But I always like the idea of when you can pull in a couple of different deals, like, and kind of pull them together. I did a lot of cross collateralization is what they call it back in the day, where I'd like take the collateral on this property and use that as my down payment on this property and kind of like connect everything together. And yeah, there's some fun ways to get creative there. But anyway, it's time to move on because we're almost out of time on today's show. But before we get any, before we let you go, let's head over to the fire round.
It's time for the fire round.
Time for the world famous fire round. Of course, these questions come direct out of the BiggerPockets forums, and we're going to fire them at you guys right now. Let's go like this one. Hey, this is funny. This is actually from a guy named Josh Dorkin from Denver, Colorado. He actually put this on the forums a few years back. I wanted to get a consensus about those who buy lists for marketing purposes. If you buy real estate lists like probate, absentee, properties with equity, etc., can you let us know, like, well, what your favorite list is that you're doing? Like, what do you get the most deals from? And then how often do you buy them? Do you have to like buy them every month, or update your list every month, or do you just buy them once a year? What do you think?
Well, we very rarely buy any kind of list.
That's right, because you go to the courthouse and just get it. Okay.
We go to the courthouse and get it. I mean, why pay somebody else to get it 2 weeks later when I can just go get it anyways?
There you go.
We don't buy any lists. And as far as favorite lists, so everyone asks that question. They're all my favorite. They all generate income. I don't look at it. I can get really granular with it if I wanted to and track, okay, if I send this many texts to this many probate, I'll get how much my response, track all my KPIs on that stuff. I have an overall KPI that's all I really care about. It's all working. And if you start trying to take it and get to the point where you're asking everybody, well, who's their favorite list? Like my favorite list is, I like pre-foreclosures. They're all the same list. There's no secret sauce out there. I mean, there's people who talk about unknown equity and stuff like that when you start getting the list source, and there's some crazy things and filters that people use. However, I'm hitting everybody that fits a certain demographic. I know what my buyers want. So I'm hitting, if I have a buyer that loves 3-2s, I'm hitting every 3-2 that's absentee owned, absentee owned and absentee out of state. Right. So it's really no favorite list. I don't have a favorite list. You have a favorite list?
Whatever our last deal closed, that's going to be
there you go.
Until we close the next deal. I'm same as Brent. I could not care less where a lead comes from as long as it comes in.
Yeah. I think, I'm listening to the David Goggins was a guest on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Oh,
so I was listening to David Goggins, who's like the fittest man on earth kind of guy. And they're having this conversation about people always ask him like, what's your exact morning workout look like? Or how many hours do you rest every time? And he's like, he like jumps down their throat. And he's like, it's not like, stop asking for a way out. Stop looking for these like little tiny tricks that are going to help you. He's like, get out there and just run. Go put your shoes on and go run. Like, just get something done. So if you're like sitting at home right now going, well, I don't know the exact list to mail to, and I'm not sure if probate's the right one or if I should, like, stop. Just stop asking that question. Like in the words of David Goggins, well, I'll use more PG language, but like, just go do something. Try it, right? Like get out there, like get working, because that's the most important thing. Not do I have the exact list exactly right the way that these two guys are doing it, right?
That man's an animal.
He is an animal.
But that's my favorite quote from Richest Man in Babylon, right? Men of action are favored by the goddess of good luck.
That's good. I don't remember that quote at all, but I love that book.
I think it was chapter 4 or chapter 7.
Wow. Deep. And by the way, if you guys ever listen to this, has not read The Richest Man in Babylon, highly recommend it. It is fantastic.
That's probably one of my favorite books of all time. That's like the one book that I'll just read over and over and over and over. And every time I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Okay.
Question number 2.
From Gabe in Austin, Texas. What factors do you look at when you're deciding whether you're going to flip a property or use it as a rental? Does it depend on the area that the property is located or the shape that it's in? Maybe you guys could look at this from the perspective of the person buying it from you.
All of the above, really. So when we look at a property, I want to look at, and I know this is always tough, right? Giving answers, but when there's no set mold, there's a lot of factors that go in. So we want to know, what the school district is. If typically in our experience, the bigger the project, the bigger the difference between a rent-ready rehab and a retail-ready rehab are. So, it might be that the house that we were just talking about, right, that we bought on terms for $100, to make it retail-ready would have probably cost us $38,000. To make it rent-ready cost us a little over $17,000. So that's a very big factor, because you're talking about a $20,000 difference in fix-up cost. The other factor is going to be what kind of terms we're getting it on. And by the way, for those of you listening, all cash at closing is a term. It's just a very, very short term.
Yes.
But that's kind of what we look at. So we're going to look at, do we have to pay cash for it? What's the cash on cash return going to be when it's rent ready, versus how much of a project is it? What can we sell it for? And what can we buy it for with cash? So then we'll try to weigh all of that out. And some of it even goes as far as, well, if we buy it for cash, we can roll in and make X number of dollars and split it 50-50 with our guy. Well, if we do creative, then it might be that we can go creative with the seller, but, partner up for the rehab money and do a 70-30 split, because there's a smaller amount of money coming to the table. So it really it all depends on all of those factors. And then we start figuring out where we can make the most amount of money.
All right. All right. I like it. All right. Last question of the of the fire round, comes from Frank from East Providence, Rhode Island. This is actually one of the most popular threads on the entire site. There's more than 1,000 replies in just the past few months on this. So I'm curious what you guys think. The question that he originally asked is it was a question to new investors who haven't yet taken action. What's holding you back? So I'll tweak that slightly in 2 different ways. One, you can answer it however you want. What held you back at the beginning? Why didn't you start earlier? What were some of the fears that held you back, or things that held you back? Or secondly, you guys network with a lot of real estate investors, a lot of up and comings, a lot of newbies. What do you see holding people back? And maybe those are the same, maybe not.
I know what my 2 are.
Well, what held me back in the beginning is I had no idea there was this thing called wholesaling. If I'd known 20 years ago, I'd be dangerous right now. But I didn't know anything about it. But I wasn't one of those people that I'm very quick to action when it comes to something I'm excited about, something that I'm passionate about. And as soon as Max kind of ran me through what he was doing, and I called Adam, he's like, oh yeah, I've done it several times. So then I have my proof of concept. I know that it works. It worked for them. It can work for me. So I immediately I took about 2 months to just study as much as possible. So I was traveling all the time. So all I did was listen to podcasts, audiobooks, read books, whatever I could do to try to catch up, because I feel like I'm so far behind everybody else.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn as much as possible for the first 2 or 3 months. And then as soon as I just set a date, okay, by this day, I'm going to go start going on appointments. I'm going to start calling. So in May of 2017, I said, all right, I got my list. I got some driving for dollars list. I'm going to call these people when I'm in a hotel, take action, and do it. So what I feel like most people's is their inability, it's analysis paralysis, right? Some people go for it too fast, too soon, and mess up a lot of things, and that's okay, as long as it's not messing up the sellers. Because for us, it's all about being helpful,
situations and stuff.
So that's really why we created the group that we have. But it's just we want to make sure everyone's educated. But education and consistency is what I feel like most people lack.
All right. Anything you want to add to that, Adam?
I think confidence. Because people haven't been through the whole process. They're terrified. Essentially, you're telling them to start a race, and you're not mapping out where they're going. And that's a terrifying thing. But I think the main issue even behind that is that, like what we talked about before, investing is a team sport, and you get a lot of people that are so dead set on, I've got to do this on my own, but they don't have the confidence or the wherewithal to go through the whole process. So they just get stuck in this loop of, I don't know exactly what to do, but I won't reach out and partner with anybody. And so it's just this never ending spiral or cycle or whatever you want to call it, where it's just over and over, you're vacillating between those two things. Whereas, like, take Brent, for instance, when he first got started, I mean, you were straight out of as new as you can get. But he studied a lot on his own. And then what he wasn't sure of, he called and asked, whether it was me or Max or whoever, he had people that he was hitting up, and which you didn't have to, but would have been more than happy to split a deal with somebody or whatever the case was, just to learn that process. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. It's because they think giving up half a deal is losing money, when really you're making half the deal to get educated. I can't think.
Yeah.
I'd have probably stayed in school if somebody would have offered me money to teach me something.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, the last segment of the show, let's head over there. This is our famous four. All right. Let's get to this famous four. These are the same four questions we ask every guest every week. So we're going to throw them at you right now. Each of you can answer separately or together in one voice if you want to. I'm just kidding. Number one, what's your favorite real estate book?
Mine would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's what got me started.
All right.
Invest in Debt.
Invest in Debt.
Who wrote that?
Yeah, I don't even know that one.
Never heard of it.
If you want to, now just be prepared, because it will absolutely
Change
screw your
life.
day up.
All right. Invest in Debt. I'm going to look that one up right now. The how-to book on buying paper for cash flow by Jim Napier. Oh, is that the one?
Yep. That's
All
it.
right. I know Jim Napier. I know the name, but I have not read that one.
Get the red copy.
The red, that's what I looked at Amazon. Yeah, it's $104 hardcover on Amazon.
Go to GaryJohnston.com and you can get it there for like $25.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. GaryJohnston.com.
Yeah.
Fancy. All right. Next question.
What is your favorite business book?
I like Play to Win. It's kind of a mindset, but applies, I think, just as equally to business. And it just, instead of going the default route that most people go, which is playing not to lose, it really hones you in on every day you go out there, just leaving it all on the table and playing to win regardless of what happens.
Mine would be Traction by Gina
Yeah,
Wick.
I gotta read that one. Have you read it, Brandon?
Started it.
It's all about systems.
Yeah,
It's
I
not-
started it. Yeah, I started it. I was not in the right place yet to finish it, but I got to get there now because I feel like I'm better now. But yeah.
The audio versions, I couldn't do the audio version. I had to
That sounded terrible, like you were going through a bad breakup and you just weren't in the right
No, like,
place.
you got to be like, you know how like you got to be like, your soil's got to be fertile, ready for that seed to be planted, right? Like it's got to be
Also,
ready.
more breakup talk.
But I was not like I didn't have anybody on my team at the time. I didn't have like any reason to like. It really is about systems and building a team and being a good like leader. At the time I didn't really have that, so like I didn't get into it. But now I'm like, man, I need to read this because now I got like a team and I got people. So I'll get there.
All right, what are some of your hobbies?
So I like baseball. I'm a big Major League Baseball fan. So I travel. I've probably been to 27 stadiums. And then just vacation. Actually, I drove up this morning from the beach. So
Nice.
just going to the beach, hanging out. I just enjoy it. It's relaxing.
I like to fish on occasion when the time permits it. That's about it.
All right,
Real estate.
that sounds good.
Yeah,
And,
we do a
real
lot of real estate.
We're passionate about it, and we're obsessed with it. And almost,
That's good.
some would say unhealthy obsession, but we enjoy it.
Cool. All right. What do you believe? Last question of the day. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I think just action. what we were talking about earlier, right, with David Goggins. I think people really try to focus on how to do things the easiest possible way, or try to figure out how to delegate everything, which is fine, but not from the get-go. People don't put enough stock into paying the piper. And in my experience, everybody has to pay the piper, and interest is pretty high.
I'm right there with him. I couldn't have said that any better.
It's good. It's good. That's going to make a nice little Instagram quote card. I like it. All right, guys, this has been fantastic. Like really, really fun. And you guys are just crushing it. I'm excited to see kind of the future of where you guys head with the text message thing. And hopefully we didn't just make 250,000 people start doing text messages for real estate deals. But, you know.
If that's the case, I'm calling the guy and tell him I need a piece of the action.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Guys, tell us, where can people find out more about you?
So we do a weekly live Q&A on Facebook inside of our group. That's where we try to educate as many people as possible. It's 100% free. You can find us by going to Real Estate Roundup on Facebook. It's a group, answer the 3 questions, and we'll let you in. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, we do a live Q&A. And Instagram, he's Big Sip Real Estate, and I'm Mr. Sippy, MisterSippi.
Mr. Sippy, that's funny.
Got it from my touring days. And my old
Pretty good.
boss called me that.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. This is some really good stuff.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having us on. We had a blast. Sorry we didn't cut as many jokes as I thought we were going to be able to. We got real serious about real estate.
I know. Who would have thought we had a long conversation about real estate?
Say cows, and I missed the opportunity to go, ow now, brown cow. Ow. Lanolin?
And it's been sitting there this whole time wishing that you could get a chance to redeem yourself. And there you go. You snuck it in right before the end.
There you go.
Well, I kept waiting on the opportunity to say that's utterly ridiculous to talk about cows.
That's awesome.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
Thank you guys.
This is David Green for Brandon Ready to Love Again Turner, signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.